Hey everybody, this is Khara Brindle. I'm back with another video, this time with a special guest in all things financial therapy for therapists, because that is the population I serve now. Welcome, James, to the video channel here. Nice to have you.
Hello, Kara. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I know we connected on LinkedIn about services that you provide to therapists, but before we jump into that, do you want to tell our viewers who you are and what you do?
Gladly, yes. So I am a CPA, though I hope people don't hold it against me. Primarily because the work I do is very different than what traditional accountants do. We work with business owners, and in my case, I work with private practice owners, helping them have better practices and helping them have a financial roadmap and a plan, everything that they need to accomplish what they want to with their practice. So it's a real passion of mine. I'm glad to be here with you today to talk a little bit about some green lights for growth.
Yes, and I love that when we first connected because you were like, there are certain things that practice owners need to be looking for to feel like they can take those next steps. So we're going to break that down for all of our viewers who are group practice owners or are thinking about group practice and just growth in general as a mental health professional. So James, what is our first green light for growth if you had to start with one?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the thing I see, I'm in the community a lot, and I'm active on LinkedIn, of course, and I'm paying attention to a lot of these conversations. I would say the absolute penultimate, overarching number one thing to do is to refine the mission.
Mm.
And it seems a little bit cliche sometimes. I talk to business owners about, mission statements, and they sort of gloss over a little bit. But really, really, truly, it cannot be overstressed. We want to have a mission statement that is comprehensive and real, very impactful, and dare I even say, inspiring for everyone in the organization.
Mm.
Because what it really needs to do, it sort of needs to be this guiding light for everything that we're doing. It needs to encompass really the goal of the organization, what it wants its reach to be, how it wants to help, patients, how it wants to help and grow the counselors, therapists, and clinicians, what the career track is, what the end goal is, and really what differentiates it from other entities of a similar type. So I've seen in some cases when it's a little bit weak, and it's weak enough that it doesn't require kind of daily discussion, that the way I like to say it is a lot of people in work it sort of devolves into this life is so daily approach.
Mm.
I heard someone say that once, that life is so daily. And we do not want our work in private practice to feel daily. We want it to feel like it's a mission and we're all getting to go. And so that's the big thing. Really think about that mission, have it be inspiring, have it address some of the bugaboos, kind of like session counts, and have it really address growth, and have it be something where anytime a new person comes into the group, everyone is welcomed or welcoming them because they see it as part of the mission because we have a growth mindset. So that's kind of the first step.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense for me as someone who is a consultant to other therapists because if they don't have a clear mission and vision in mind, it doesn't really allow them to stand apart from somebody else when it comes to hiring, which you've named today, and even just like who they're serving and making that really clear. From a financial therapist standpoint, it's that idea of like niching down, and then we have like a scarcity response of like, oh, if I get too specific, I won't have enough clients. And yet, for growth, it makes sense that it needs to be clear so we can recruit the right people to serve the population and then serve the population itself. So everything you're saying so far makes sense to me as someone who's also like, who do you serve and why? And not saying it's anxiety, depression, and trauma, because we all do that.
Yeah. And why do we serve? And what do we want the end result to be?
Mm-hmm.
And why do we ultimately, because one of the things that we sometimes see is it can be easy for an organization to do what it did yesterday unless
Mm-hmm.
we're mindful of where we're headed in a really consistent manner. And we want to always be looking for what's the next thing to fine tune, what's the next way for us to be better. And yeah, totally.
Absolutely. So that's, I feel like the start of the roadmap. What would be another green light for growth for you after people think about that mission?
Sure. And it sounds a little bit simple, like of course, but abundance, right?
Mhm.
So before we grow, we want to really craft some reliable abundance into the practice. We want to have a very consistent and steady referral pattern. Maybe we want to have a wait list. We just want to be kind of in that spot where it's like, I prefer abundance to the word overload, but in
Yeah.
the business world, they really want to say before expand, make sure you're filling your current container, right?
Yeah.
So it's like some level really have clear signs that you have reliable future, referrals and intake that is beyond what you can handle right now. So, just
Mhm.
looking for abundance and making sure you're kind of tapped into your market in that way where you can see it coming in. So,
Yeah. And so I know for a lot of folks that naturally shows up when they do have wait lists or they feel like they're full as a solo practitioner and then move into
yeah.
a group practice model. Do you have any recommendations of how long they should measure that abundance to be like, this is truly the green light versus this is just an upsurge and it's going to go back down?
Yeah, so looking at seasonality, so one thing a lot of practices will have is they'll sort of have a natural seasonality. Some of them will have one that's kind of sculpted around, the school year, or some of them will have sort of a seasonality that actually goes with the seasons because, people stay home, like in places like Michigan and stuff like that. So you might have some sort of seasonality. So you can look in your EHR and sort of see what were heavier months and lower months. And if you can, and you have enough history, you can look back maybe a few years over and you can say, okay,
Mm.
September is always naturally high. So, then you might look to see, okay, when we get to October, we see if it's high compared to last year, then we know we'll probably have sort of a sustained, referral pattern that's
Mhm.
abundant and supportive of future growth.
Yeah, I feel like this is even more important after the pandemic because we saw such a weird shift in referrals in the pandemic because, like you said, no one went anywhere, everyone was available, we were all doing telehealth. And then we
Yeah.
finally saw a summer where people took time off or clients didn't want to be seen. And so having a couple years to compare to, I think would be pretty important at this stage as we're recording in 2023 when things are still kind of in flux and are starting to stabilize to whatever the new norm is. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
And if you don't have kind of that background and history, you can always ask some peers, that are nearby, in a similar community and say, hey, are you seeing the same thing? It looks like where things there's an uptick, or is it just me and I've finally got things, just right.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So all this makes sense. Is there a third thing, green light for growth,
There
that you're
is.
thinking about?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. Systems, I think, are huge, right? So when we're about to grow, we really want to be sure our systems are crafted to take on that growth. And so of course, it's a case of ideals, right? But in an ideal world, everything is ready. Sort of, we're like baseball. We're gonna catch the pass.
Mhm.
Football. I'm not a very much sports person, but it seemed like a good analogy. So our intake should be ready to it should be kind of refined so we can handle a greater number of client intakes. Our billing should be ready. If you have an hourly biller or a session bill or a session based biller, make sure they have capacity, to take that on. Whoever is going to do the work, if you're going to be considering hiring, we'll talk a little bit about hiring. But if you feel you have the capacity just internally, where you can start accepting, more patients, just make sure you're kind of ready for that to come in. And I would also say on the systems front, it's easy to think that systems are like software or something like that, but we have a human component of the systems. And
Mhm.
so talk to the supervisors, talk to your clinicians, get a sense like, hey, are you ready for some changes? Are you ready to grow? We've already crafted our mission statement in a way that makes sure everyone feels like they want this growth to happen. But do you see any issues? Do you see any bottlenecks? Check with the admin team, check with your
Smart.
biller. Just
Mhm.
kind of get a sense like, green lights. Do we feel like we're okay and we're ready to be where we need to be? And if we do feel that there's some additional resources, are those kind of tracked out? Do we feel like we'll stay ahead of the game with those? If you need to get a new AHR because the one you've been using was not, it was kind of lightweight. That you've got it kind of picked out. You have your migration from the old one to the new one sort of planned, just sort of making
Mhm.
sure everything is kind of ready to go.
Yeah. So what struck me as you said that is like growing pains, but like trying to mitigate those or lessen those. Cause like, yes, there's going to be some pains of like an EHR changeover or, extra money being spent to grow to begin with. So it sounds like having people really peel that apart, interview each other, make sure the community is ready to go in the organization. That's all an important step.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing you might find is, if you have those conversations, you might find that a supervisor that's working with you or an admin person is working with you, they might indicate to you maybe there's accommodate currently or not able to accommodate to the right level. Like let's say it's, ADHD, clinical work with ADHD patients. You might find you have, a small group maybe, but only one person is focused on that. And so a
Mhm.
lot of your waiting list might relate specifically to that specialty. So then we start thinking about that as a human system. We need to have more people with those types of resources. And how do we handle that? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I know I don't want you to give away all your trade secrets in this video because you want to serve these clinicians that are thinking about this. So let me ask you this. What made you choose this population to serve of private practice owners or mental health professionals?
Oh, yeah. So I am an avid user of therapy. I've had a little bit of a weird life. I've been on some different tracks in some different places, and I've seen my current therapist about every week for the past 3 years. And the discoveries I've made about why I am who I am and why some of my experiences were what they were are nothing short of priceless. And it was immensely beneficial to me. And one of the things that I saw is some of my experiences, when I was younger. I'm in a position where I'm able to see back then there was a stigma around people getting mental health help, and I can see over my life how that has changed, and I can see to themselves, defective in any way if they
Mhm.
want that help. And I really do feel that the mental health space is the tip of the spear for our whole world becoming a better place, because people can come from any walk of life. They can come with any sort of challenge, interpersonal relationship challenge or personality challenge or whatever, or just wanting to understand themselves better and get help and improve themselves in some very, very foundational ways. At least that
Right.
was my experience. So
I love
I
that.
really thought, yeah, I really thought it would be great to serve. I also noticed, especially I went to the APA convention in DC, and it's funny, everyone I walked around and I was like, yeah, I'm a CPA. I help private practice grow. And people were like, oh, we need that. Like everyone had the same reaction, like, because it's shocking. There isn't a lot of training, in the college and university setting, in the business side.
Mhm.
And it was shocking to me to learn that typically they don't even get training in an EHR. and
Right.
and what's interesting about that really is it's not necessarily unique to private practice, because it's really just a typical entrepreneurial challenge. And when entrepreneurs start any business, they're going to have this golden nugget, like I said, this mission statement, this vision of what the experience should be between their business and their business's customer. And
Mhm.
as soon as possible, whenever they possibly can, they have to get help to make sure they're not distracted and that vision doesn't get diluted. So yeah, there's an opportunity to serve for sure, and I'm certainly passionate about the work that all of you do. So that's
Thank
why I'm
you.
here.
Well, and that reaction you got from APA, I'm sure you're going to get from the viewers of this video. So the big question is, how do people find you? Where do they find you if they want to work with you in this capacity? Because you're right, this is a pain point people are wanting to address, and knowing that you exist is one of the reasons this video is amazing. So where do people find you?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So I'm part of a national alliance of accountants who've decided to work with business owners in this way. Private practice just happens to be my focus, but the website for our national group is CEB Advisors, and CEB stands for the Center for Enlightened Business. And you'll see me there listed as one of the advisors for the national group. I have my own team and my own firm, but that's the best place to find us and get contacted. You can also find my profile on LinkedIn, James Childress, and happy to connect with anyone. Really just looking to reach out. I'd love to have a brief conversation with anyone on your channel and see if there's anything I could do at all to help.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I know they do too. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of excitement to know that you are someone who helps craft that roadmap to talk about the green lights for growth. I know we talked about three of them. I'm sure you had even more in your head today that I was like, oh, this is why I want people to come to you because they have more information they're going to gain. And I know
Sure.
you're also going to, write this out for some folks on LinkedIn and some of the places that you're most active. So I just appreciate you sharing your information and the knowledge that you've gained. And I know there'll be a lot of people on this channel who are going to have questions for you based on this. So thank you so much, James, for sharing your wisdom today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kara. Very glad to be here.